Please now generate the motivation of bodhicitta, the mindset on supreme awakening, thinking, I will establish, or in order to establish, all mother sentient beings, luminous in number as the vast expanse of space, at the level of perfect, complete, unsurpassable enlightenment. I will now listen to this explanation of the Vajrasattva practice and apply that to myself. So, thinking like that, please rouse the mind of bodhicitta. Mulgisung kesi kerim zinchi da zoba matene chogore dine ma cheoche kesi chogore la dine oh Shirik Dorje
Chopa from the Jigdrel Chopa Jigdrel Mendax and Mendax doesn't count the Chopas and count the Topas and count the Jigdrel come there's the look on it to someone to this. In the Chopa, the Mandigo that I married the day as you told
So, yesterday I bestowed the Vajrasattva empowerment, and today I am teaching giving instructions on the Vajrasattva practice, the same practice for which I gave the empowerment yesterday. The very fact that you requested me to first give the empowerment for this practice and then to teach on it just reflects the fact that you are students of an excellent teacher and you sort of know how things should be done, that before engaging in a tantric practice one needs empowerment, but that also one needs instructions in order to know how to practice properly. In the Tibetan tradition we call empowerment that which ripens, or ripening empowerment, and then the supportive instructions are described as liberating instructions. So we have ripening empowerment and liberating instructions. Generally, regarding the liberating instructions, generally speaking, traditionally, one doesn't really give practice instructions sort of based on a specific liturgy. Generally, what's done is the ripening empowerment will be given for specific practices, but in terms of educating the students as to how to engage in those given practices, well, a teacher won't kind of go through each sadhana individually and explain, line by line or practice by practice, how it should be done. Rather, there are more general sort of overview texts that are not related to any specific sadhana, but are related to sadhana practice or sort of deity practice in general, and give one a very detailed and extensive understanding of the framework of such practices. So, what sort of texts are we talking about? Longchenpa's commentary on the Guhyagarbha Tantra, entitled Dispelling the Darkness of the 10 Directions. This extensive commentary really gives one a complete, detailed overview of the framework of sadhana practice and also sort of what its foundation is, really from A to Z, top to bottom. Similarly, there are texts known as overviews of, we could say, notes on generation stage practice, in Tibetan Kirim Zintri, and some specific kind of, this is a type of text, Kirim Zintri, notes on generation stage practice, and there's some specific texts which are very well known and highly praised because they really give one an extensive just to repeat, a very extensive, detailed understanding or explanation, and therefore understanding of how ritual practices are structured, how they work. So beginning from the very first part of the ritual where one sprinkles cleansing water on the offerings and so on, all the way through the different stages of the practice to the dedication of merit, aspirations and prayers for auspiciousness. If you study those texts, those more general texts, you can gain a really grounded and thorough understanding of what sadhana practice and the various liturgies and rituals are all about. And then you can apply that understanding to any given sadhana, and there's no need then to receive further instructions on, this Vajrasattva sadhana, this Vajrakalaya sadhana, and so on and so forth. Just to mention a few specific texts that are very worth looking at. Jigme Lingpa's notes on the generation stage entitled Staircase to Akanishta, which is translated in English. A text by Dudjom Lingpa called The Sharp Vajra of Awareness, and other notes for and other such texts. Later on we can prepare a list of some texts in this category that are available in English. These days, though, so this is, just to reiterate, this is how things are done generally in the Tibetan tradition. There is, until very recently, there has been no tradition of instructing students in how to practice a specific sadhana. Generally, students would be taught or told to study these more general texts that are extremely thorough and give one a detailed survey of sadhana practice, and then the student would develop a thorough understanding and apply that understanding to any given sadhana. They wouldn't have the need to go and ask a teacher, "Oh, please teach me how to practice this specific sadhana." These days, though, people, for whatever reason, maybe people are becoming a bit lazy. They aren't bothering to do that extensive study, more general study. And instead, they just pick up a practice and then go and ask a teacher, "Oh, please teach me how to do this specific sadhana." And so now we find commentaries on teachings on specific sadhanas that really, nothing like this existed in the Tibetan tradition until a few years ago. Like you'll find teachings on, the visualization for truma, or the visualization for this Vajrasattva practice in this lineage. This is a new phenomena, so it's just good to be aware of that. It's not to say that there's anything wrong with this, it's just this isn't really the tradition, and there's a reason why it's not the tradition, because if you go about things that way, then there'll be no end to the need for explanations. Every time you do a new sadhana, you'll feel like you need to go and get new teachings, whereas if you do things the traditional way, studying generation stage practice, sadhana practice as a whole, as a subject on its own, then you can gain an understanding of that style of practice and apply it to any given sadhana without the need to get specific instructions again. Just to say again, this really is the way things are in the tradition and always have been. Just to prove the point, for instance, look at the collected works of Jigme Lingpa or Dudjom Lingpa, just to take two masters. Jigme Lingpa's collected works contain so many different sadhanas, ritual practices, but you won't find any commentaries there by Jigme Lingpa that go specifically, that teach the visualization and so on for a specific sadhana, right? Instead, what you do find is Jigme Lingpa's more general commentaries on generation stage as a mode of practice, like the text I mentioned, the ladder to Akanishta. Likewise with Dudjom Lingpa, how many sadhanas are contained in Dudjom Lingpa's collected works? But he didn't there aren't commentaries on, say, this Vajrakalaya practice, this Vajrasattva practice by Dudjom Lingpa. Instead, you have more general teachings like the sharp Vajra of awareness and so on. So this is just to kind of inform you of generally how things are, because if you really want to gain a thorough, comprehensive understanding of generation stage practice and sadhana practice, that's the way to go about it. Study these more general, detailed texts, and develop your own understanding that you'll be able to apply to any sadhana without the need to receive specific instructions. Nasser. So this being the case, what I'll do here is give an overview of this extensive Vajrasattva sadhana, a chariot of great merit. I'm not going to go through it line by line. We don't have the time to do that. Of course, each word and each line of the liturgy is extremely precious and rich, but we won't go through each line. What I'll do is I'll go through the sadhana from beginning to end, just highlighting and giving some explanation of each section. So, yeah, each section or part of the practice. As I said yesterday and on previous days, Vajrasattva is a deity of the what we call the magical matrix, the magical matrix of the 100 peaceful and wrathful deities, and Vajrasattva is a deity who embodies all of these 100 peaceful and wrathful deities, all boundless deities. So they're all embodied in the single figure of Vajrasattva. The previous Dudjom Rinpoche, Jigdrel, Yeshe, Dorje composed 4 very blessed lines of supplication to Vajrasattva, where he says, Vajrasattva is the embodiment of all gurus without exception. So we need, this is to say, Vajrasattva embodies or condenses within himself all gurus, and this is how we need to understand Vajrasattva as being in essence all of our root gurus. For instance, take myself. I have so many different teachers, so many lamas I've studied with. For instance, Dudjom Rinpoche, Tongsen Nobu Rinpoche, Peno Rinpoche, Kempo, Dazer, and so on. Sorry, I'm missing out a few, quite a lot actually, but me meaning, not Rinpoche. But all of them are embodied in the deity Vajrasattva. The essence of all of my many gurus are embodied in Vajrasattva. The second line of the supplication reads, likewise all countless yidams are contained in the form of Vajrasattva. So there are so many different types of yidam deities, right? But all of them, without exception, are embodied in Vajrasattva. Thirdly, Vajrasattva, you embody and contain all dakinis. The dakinis of the three classes, the 5 families, the dakinis of all the different sacred places and lands are all contained within Vajrasattva. So to you, the embodiment of all Buddha families, sovereign Vajrasattva, I supplicate. This, because Vajrasattva embodies all gurus, all yidam deities, all dakinis, because he embodies all enlightened ones, therefore, when we practice Vajrasattva, we are practicing all deities, all gurus, all yidams, and all dakinis. Again, to use myself as an example, I've received literally thousands of different empowerments, literally thousands. If I were to try and practice the specific sadhanas for all of those specific sadhanas and deities for all of those empowerments, it would simply be impossible. There is literally not enough time in the day to even think about doing that. So how do I go about practicing? Well, I practice Vajrasattva daily because Vajrasattva is the essence and embodiment of all deities without exception. When I practice Vajrasattva daily, I do so using this practice we're looking at, but with a slightly shorter liturgy. There is a slightly shorter liturgy than this one, but for the very same Vajrasattva practice. So that's what I use for my daily practice. Not so much.
Lama idam bhagavati idam the college to resna position be kudi idam thamche ne chidu de kure to de lama thamche ge chidu de position to dene khando thamche ge ta thamche ge de position de so de kala ui idam sung khando to lama ta sum kudi.
How are the 3 roots of the Guru, Yidam and Dakini embodied in Vajrasattva? Well, Vajrasattva's physical form, his enlightened body, is the embodiment of all Yidam deities. Vajrasattva's enlightened mind is the embodiment of all gurus, and Vajrasattva's enlightened speech is the embodiment of all dakinis. So Vajrasattva's body is all Yidam deities, his speech is all dakinis, and his mind is all gurus.
Yeah, that in the contact, Dorje Sempa the constant took the race now. In the Dorje like to repeat the adult concern of the Sangi or one to chip. In the Sangi go up to the Congress now, the Tamokan is a Tanya, but you make the tower, I need the towers, I need the you make go on to repeat the Sangi get up to but I am the but able to do the Chavala, I can go on the Mother, shall be on that. He don't know, shall be on very mother of our John in the zone in the Dublin on the Ayasha or high number on the Jigdrel, very lovely number. Lama, he don't get any to the home on the Rosatini, Rami, you get to pass out our several done, or any number of Tabar and Chuntam Jigdrel. And then I see some of our people give the vacation and carry
Why is it that we need to practice Vajrasattva, engage in this kind of practice? Well, it's because we need to manifest the state of enlightenment, right? We need to make the state of enlightenment manifest. And what is the ultimate, consummate state of enlightenment? It's the full manifestation of the inseparable truths of great purity and equality, which I talked about in detail in the previous evenings, right? So to make this consummate state of enlightenment, the inseparable truths of great purity and equality, to make that bring that into, to actualize that, to bring that reality into reality, so to speak, we need to purify all of our impure experience and obscurations. We do that by practicing the deity, by practicing the deity. Through that kind of practice, we're able to gradually clear away all of our misdeeds, our obscurations and habitual tendencies that obscure this reality from us. We're able to accumulate merit and to transform our impure appearances into their natural state, meaning pure appearances. And as a result, by engaging in practice, then in this kind of practice, over time we will come to realize or make manifest this inseparable great purity and equality, so that it's not something we just understand conceptually, but our actual reality, our actual experience. Not so much. Not so much. Not so much.
남쪽에 도시 셈바리 하면서 된 거에 그러니까 도시 셈바리 콕 가르스나 콕스거라 싸워지 말았나 유료 상황이 되니까 유료 상황이 뭐지 간제신 양수라는 거야. 다 유료 상황이보다 더 공시해봐래. 나라서 싸워 보이더니 가서나 내가 같이 거네. 유료 상황이 뭐 뒤뒤시해. 배겨봐다 배겨요. 뒤시. 딱이 나네 para 유료 상황이 그런 거 제바이나 뭐하는 거지. 유료 주제 유튜브 당연히 민다네. 아무도 내래 저거 생각하지 마. 유튜브 주제가 나와서 용서다. 따와. 네. 대판에 따와서. 이나서 유이 있으니나 네 묘가 땡긴지 따와서 공부하시. 라트로 쳐봐서 따와 공부하셔서. 이제 다 뒤에 따와 공부하셔서 이제 더 김코로 다 나와서 김코로 공부해서 dorje sembi shabara changyo so dokwa singaramza ya ne to dan korona tamsi or kinkoro sigi dumbo kinkoro donda te masawa ni basa yendi ko non tene ko so dan tamsi ya batla ne kinkoro ati ko ba ya tene ale so no tawa ko ba ai mewa tene la ta kinkoro ke kinkoro ke la Lama chukor sa wala wang ko wang de mena kin kon nam chukdio go me ke ke mala ni kin ko ni ka wang sa kin ko de nam chukor sa wala ribar ka wang ribar ka wang de kana ya ribar sa ni ni si ko wang ko wang de ba she ba ni ko wang sa wang she wang so wang na su ko wang de zo wang la mi wang til nam se ki na du tu sa wang ni na mo shi de ni de la da ni a ko ni si ko ni kin de shi 마시엘은 아들 한 가지 하고 거기 모습으로서 말해서 우리가 무슨 일을 따르게 되지. 하고 이제 그런 모습으로 생각다. 왕은 상황인데 영원한 상황은 왕은 세대에 왕이 시다라는 거죠. 문제는 왕은 세대는 말고 왕은 세. 근데 민다와 담직은 상하야. 담직 살들보다 담직조보다 살들보다 담직보다 담직 마셔는 조우들 남아 ini tak orang so hitam sih, namanya hitam tu awam besar. Ini kalau orang hitam ini tu pinjam tu bah. Oh ya, jadi ini bu, dia itu tentu dia pada sih ya, tentu jangan ya, saya tentu mana yang lah tentu juga, saya tentu jangan itu nanti tentu. Dan bagi jasa mungkin hal, bagi jasa itu tentu dia itu mana, tujuh ini minta was, tak kira minta. 아이 그런 얘기 같은데 얘기 같은데 아 돈들이 와 주바스 돈들이 와 주바스 아 바로 온수 주지 주바스 막다 사건은 이제 뭐시하면 그치는 좋다가 주시는 소리도 아 누바다는 뭐고저로 나가서 양발님이 주바 주시는 거고요 이제 이거는 하고 제가 돈들이 와 주바스 그거 다들 방향대로 얘기를 해줘요. 근데 저도 chopa. 준비기 전에 chopa. 근데 시주였으니까 자주였으니까 뭐고. 시주였으니까 change 같은 거도 그나서 지져서 시주. 자주였으니까 그나서 내는 시지가 알아서이나 데이터 왕왕왕왕 주인이 있었던 것 같은데 아주 그다음에 하는 것 같은데 이제 하기에도 저번에 나이 있는데 다 되는 주인이 있었던 저희는 아들을 위해서 지금 도생은 이게 나가다 공부를 미고 공부라서 왔다 진행해 아까 이거 나도 대인들은 다 자취했으면 자꾸 그쳐야 됐을까 되게 그거거든요 chopa hatta merakta olması var şöyle mental hatalar sonra diye merakta ya ne dedi chopa dedi chopa hadi chopa da ya musu chopa iyi ki chopa da ne dinajingi ya tingin chopa da çobi ke jam hadi hanye ba chopa ya ne roba chile a chopa to sara jide ko ne rama di ko ya tine ko when 보고 싶은 그 미션을 그 단계를 가봐게 미션이 아버지 제가 나는 내가 그렇지 있으라고 라마지 그냥 라마들 샤도도 내가 취했는데 나오지 있으나 이제 초파야 이제 진행마 이제 진행되는 시와다 기와 왕나 잡고서 그 진행도 되는 다들 진행도 이네 시와처럼 되는 내 친구가 참자다 진짜서 아무것도 그 공모수 좀 참자 참자들이야 참자는 거 싫어서 뭐예요? 예, 그 차이가 손을 인도 당도 창생당 내기 창자서 차이가 뭐예요? 대들이 차이 아저게 무슨 소리 뭐예요? 친구가 차이야. 내가 얘들이 하다 꿀꿀을 제가 나. 내가 너무 바드사도 상관없는 바에 바드사도 내가 파야 규칙이 제가 나. 다 뒤죽지기 때문에 다 너는 초가지 뒤죽지를 상관. 뒤죽지게 상관은 얘네 저게 초가리야. 아까 차가 뒤죽지게 마상나. 얘네 초가지 지금 나오는 대대로 되네. 야부처럼 내가 가봐서 우리도 왜 있나요? 참지에 정도의 차지고 말로 가봐 좋아하는 게 있잖아. 이 난신 제게가 알아서 지금 지단에 있는 유진 탐주 사업에 야부요. 유진 또 지금 마상 있는 딘데딘데 또 되지 않고 주만 좀 차이고 얘기가 나오게 되니까 알아서는 아야네 이기고 쭉직이 저가 약간 저는 상상될 거지. 이제 참 뭐들 예인데 로그 내리는 게 로그가 뭐 상상될 거다. 약고제 하야고 지금 거기 알아서 되니 저가 약고 당시에 되니 이 참이라 됐어. 이게 뭔가 상당히 저가 약고 좀 같이 참을 다다다다 내만 저가 변조해 하시고 뭐만 저가 되게 배처럼 지금 빼졌다 이거 목적이 이게 그냥 인지적으로 나 스텝이 지금 이제 많이 나는 소리지. 지금 처음에 너무 미스 뭔지를 너무 나랑 게임에 배쳐가는 게 나한테 너무 되니까 처음에 이게 초가당이 전자기 말이야. 초가당 더 맞으면 쉬워요. 초가당 선수 뭐냐면 윗몸 주지하는 데 상대. 뭐만 나 초가당이 또 지금 이쪽으로 나는 너 맞아. 또 이거 또 제자상으로 좀 공부할 때는 나와는 것다. 얘네가 사람들이 나한테는 너무 용기가 나 오늘 장고신데 우리 나라도 쉬우 주고 좀 대신 시행이에요. 나랑 지금 장을 시작하잖아. 이마지 좀 대들지 말았어. 나도 방금 쉬사를 했어. 시험을 나서는 무슨 딱 미닝도 당연히 또 제일 카로테를 시작해. 최소한 때는 카로테를 써. 방금 쉬사를 했어. 하버드 유로 상황이 쉬사요. 이게 그냥 유로 상황이 뭐 담들라. 그냥 하다 차가 제기면 센터에 제사요. 이게 다 초가 약속 상황이 나서 이거 체중이나 나가고 땅으로 해서 아버지 나도 되게 인터셉트 내가 만들어라고 이 초가 나 요요 그러다가 이게 선 하나 지금 초가 당이 그 지서로 더블 이렇게 같이 만들어라고 그래. 라마 별별 아주 저거를 뭐 이게 주시지도 않아서 나는 초가 이게 우리 나한테서 왜냐 초가지 땅에 나서 이거 좀 제가 땅에 나가 내가 이제 이거 땅에 간 초가지 땅에서 지금 권이 고점분이 죽다시만 봐도 죽고 상대가 됐어. 이게 그냥 상황인 것을 딱 빼내시고 로마고 초가지 이제 라는 양념당 집이고 지금 맞은 여자가 있는 죽고 저 장대에 상인의 담치를 되어야 됐어. 이게 그냥 상황인 그 담치를 쓰긴 되네. 양모다 망는 게 저서 상황 중소적 상황인 거 유리하면 저거 산이 하정마야 산이 내가 세주된 영향이 있다 있나요? 근데 유튜브 주도 상으로 유튜브 주도 상으로 단축될 된 거. 되게 되니 나는 나중에 아주 유튜브 단축해서 이거 배가 나온다. 다 되나서 이렇게 그래서 무슨 나는 다 초과가 아주 유튜브 주지 영향이 지난 거니. 그러니까 초과는 나게 인터넷에 초과도 나는 뭐 약국이 초과도 저희 약국이 하고 지금 나에게 상담하는 사람이 자 이렇게 해야지 다 소원하고 진짜 야 라마 힘들지는 막 뭐니 이게 저가 약국이 땅에 러시아 반주 초과도 용수 없고 곰 나는 곰이 약국이 그래서 뒤도 뒤는 순주다 내가 초과 받는 게 좀 쌤 쪼우다 아우 다 유튜브 상황이 뭐다 나는 네 베스트 알아 다시 유튜브 상황이 배터리 밀어 놓은 것이 미가 거기에 아니 그런 상황이 뭐냐 내지 쳐야 땅 나버다 땅이나 근데 아무래도 다 대셔가 까마 까마서 유튜브 쳐가지고 이제 내다 나와서 이 단계라서 같은데 이거 때문에 주다 나와서 디테일 이제 다시 이제 감독 그라서 유튜브 내가 이제 간단하게 상황도 이미 쳐가 때문에 다리 비디오 찍다 상 뒤도 다 빼비게 되니까 빼비게 인터스트로 차 지금이야 서원이 맞아봤다 이제 시계를 배우고 뒤도 차를 먹었어요 서원이 맞아봤지 여기 US 이 경험소에는 뒤에 쳐갔던 비디오 매년에 가운데 약을 미처 드시나 딜마시네 나도 다다다 되지 내게 거 I am very lazy. Too much. Jet.
The kind of the heart or the source of the heart and source of Vajrasattva is the Guyagarbha Tantra, the Guyagarbha Tantra of the magical matrix. Or maybe we could translate that better and say the magical matrix of the secret essence. Guyagarbha means secret essence. This is the source and the heart of Vajrasattva himself. What though do we mean by that? What does the Guyagarbha, the magical matrix of Guyagarbha actually mean? What's that about? Well, I did explain that briefly, not in any kind of detail, but briefly, when discussing, when giving teachings on the 9 yanas, those 2 evenings of teachings. What I was talking about there was basically the content of the magical matrix of the Guyagarbha Tantra. The whole content of the Guyagarbha Tantra can be condensed into what we call the 11 principles of mantra. These are explained in Mipam Rinpoche's overview commentary and other commentaries. Because the Guyagarbha Tantra is extremely vast and extensive, but all of the essential points can be condensed into the 11 principles of mantra. So it's good therefore to come to know what these 11 principles are. So what are they? First of all, they are the first of them is the view of the intrinsic nature. The second is samadhi, so unwavering samadhi. Third is the conduct to be kept. So these are the first 3. They essentially are referring to view, meditation, and conduct, right? I'll repeat them once more. So number 1 is the view of the intrinsic nature. 2 is unwavering samadhi. And 3 is the conduct to be kept. The fourth of these 11 principles is the mandala that is to be practiced. So in this case, and in the case of the Guyagarbha Tantra, this refers to the mandala of Vajrasattva. What we mean by mandala is the central deity, in this case Vajrasattva, surrounded by his retinue in their entirety, and the whole dimension of the deity, Vajrasattva, his retinue, and so on. Mandala means round, or circle. So one meaning of this word is the main deity and their retinue, but in their entirety, so like full and complete, like a circle, with nothing missing. And that was the fourth. Now the fifth is empowerment, or we could say the successive stages of empowerment. So that's the fifth, the successive stages of empowerment. As explained yesterday, we need to receive empowerment if we want to enter into a mandala. The entryway or the gateway into Vajrayana and into the mandala is to receive empowerment. There are 4 different types of empowerment: the vase, secret, wisdom, knowledge, and precious word empowerment. Empowerment can also be divided up and described in many other ways, but this 4-fold categorization is a very common one. Some of you might think, for instance, there's a 25-fold division of empowerment and so on in the Guhyagarbha Tantra and its related texts. This is gone into in great detail. When I mention things like this, mention details like this, but then don't expound on them, some of you might think, oh, is Rinpoche just trying to prove to us that he's so learned? That's not what I'm trying to do. But at the same time, when mentioning these, when covering this subject matter, I feel like if I don't mention these points, then those of you who are more learned might think, well, maybe he doesn't know what he's talking about because he didn't mention so and so. So what to do? I mentioned these things, but we don't have time to go into them. There is also, in terms of empowerment, the Guhyagarbha Tantra also teaches the we could say the propelling empowerment, the secret empowerment, the like charging empowerment. Those are not very good translations, but yeah. Then we have the next point, which is the 6th, the samayas that should not be transgressed. This refers to keeping the various sacred commitments that we take when receiving empowerment. These involve pledging to engage continuously in the practice of the deity and so on. The most important samaya, however, is to the guru. This includes then also to keep one samaya with the guru, but also to, for instance, in the case of the Yidam deity, to never separate from the appearance of the Yidam deity, also to practice like the liturgy or ritual for that given deity on a daily or regular basis. As with these other points, there's a lot of detail taught in the tantras and their related texts. The Guhyagarbha Tantra enumerates 5 root samayas and 10 subsidiary samayas, making a total of 15. In short, samaya are our sacred commitments. We need to abide by them and not transgress them. We have the next point, which is the 7th, right? The 7th, the engaging in practice. This is the 7th, engaging in practice. This refers to different types of ritual practice to be engaged in, and for instance, the 4 stages of approach and accomplishment, close approach, accomplishment, and great accomplishment. It also includes the elaborate ritual practices of what we call Drupje and Drupchen, which are group practices done over the course of many days in a very specific way. The 8th principle is offerings. So the different types of offerings that are presented to the deity or deities. These include offerings that are peaceful by nature, such as the 7 offerings, the 7 sort of generic offerings of drinking water, rinsing water, and so on. There are also wrathful offerings that are comprised of different substances, like the 5 senses. This includes also the offerings of Amrita, Rakta, and Torma. We can also classify offerings in terms of, in the following 3-fold way: material offerings, imagined offerings, and emanated offerings. The next point is activities to be engaged in. So we need to practice, and part of the practice is to actually invoke and engage in activities to make things happen, basically. To use an example, for instance, if we go to meet an important person, important meaning they hold a certain kind of status and power, we might go to meet them and offer them food and chat them up and so on. At the end of the meal or what have you, we will make a request of them, right? Because we want to make something happen. Similarly, you might follow a teacher. You might attend to their needs by cooking them meals and taking care of them. At the end of offering service to the teacher, you will make a request of them, right? Oh, please, teacher, grant me some instructions or give me some advice. So in the same way, tantric practice involves invoking activities, peaceful, increasing, subjugating, and so on activities. The 10th point is mudra, that which binds. We can talk about 4 different types of mudra, or we could translate mudra into English as seal. We can talk about 4 different types of mudra, for instance, the mudra of enlightened body, the syllables, which are the mudra of enlightened speech, the insignia, which are the mudra of enlightened mind, and activity, and so on. There are many other types of divisions. Finally, we have the 11th principle, which is mantra, that which is to be recited. We recite mantra, for instance, the 100 syllables of Vajrasattva, in order to invoke the deity, entreat their blessings, and so on. So these 11 principles of mantra are like the other crucial causes and conditions that need to be present in our practice, our tantric practice. If they are all present, then our practice is authentic, it's complete. They're a bit like ingredients in a meal, just to use an analogy. You might cook a very good meal, but if you're missing one ingredient, like salt, then the meal isn't going to taste so good, right? It's not going to be a success. In a sense, these 11 principles are a bit like ingredients. In short, what I'm saying is, what the teachings say is that all 11 principles need to be present in our practice. We can't, it's important that they're all present and not a single one is missing. And their presence, bringing all of these together, these causes and conditions together, automatically makes our practice authentic, effective, correct. How, now that I've said that, you might wonder, well, how do we apply these 11 principles? Like like practically speaking. Well, this you will come to see as we go through the liturgy. Like I said, I'm going to go through the different, not through the liturgy word by word, but through the different sections of the practice, and I will correlate those to these 11 principles of mantra, so you can see how all 11 principles can be actually performed by oneself, and also how they're present in any given sadhana. In the past, to be honest, when I was younger, I wasn't actually that interested in ritual practice. I was really interested in studying, and I was really interested in studying the scriptures, and I did do a lot of ritual practice. Daily practice, and also longer pujas and so on the special days. But I personally wasn't that enthusiastic about it. I kind of thought, studying the scriptures was kind of the more important and significant thing. Especially when we were studying, for me, the most kind of important and meaningful subject or scripture is the Guhyagarbha Tantra, the Tantra of the magical matrix. But I thought, with regard to that, the most meaningful thing to do is to really study the scriptures and to really delve deep into the various scriptures of that Tantra. But at some point, one of my teachers, Khenpo Daze Rinpoche, he gave some he said something which kind of changed my outlook. He didn't say this as part of like a formal teaching, but just as like advice and a shared reflection. He said, all of us, we've received many empowerments, including empowerment into the Guhyagarbha Tantra. And so we hold various commitments, Vajrayana commitments, which means that we need to practice in a certain way. We need to practice, basically. one way to maintain and uphold those commitments is to engage in correct ritual, to perform the rituals properly, at the minimum once on the 10th day of the lunar month and once on the 25th day of the lunar month. And he said if we do that, if we practice rituals properly on those 2 days, then that's a way for us to really uphold our samayas purely. And then he said, well, you know, why is that the case? Well, that's the case because if you think about it, when you sit down and you perform a ritual, meaning like a sadhana or ritual liturgy, from beginning to end, so beginning with refuge and bodhicitta and proceeding all the way through the different stages to the concluding dedication of merit and aspiration prayers. If you pay attention, you'll see that all 11 principles of mantra, which are actually the heart of the Guhyagarbha Tantra, all of them are present within any given ritual practice or any given sadhana. There's no need actually to look elsewhere or to feel like you have to do something else or look somewhere else for these 11 principles or for a way to keep your samaya. Just apply yourself to ritual practice properly and automatically you'll be engaged in those 11 principles of mantra and keeping your samayas, especially your samayas of the Guhyagarbha Tantra. That was really like a kind of light bulb moment for me when he said that, because before, like I said, I was really paying more attention and placing more importance in study of the Guhyagarbha scriptures compared to practicing. Of course, I did practice because, like in a group, for instance, we do practice in a group, and you have to go along. So it's not like I wasn't practicing. It's just my heart wasn't in it in the same way as it is now. When I say, or when Khenpo Daze Rinpoche said, perform a ritual, he of course means perform it really properly and correctly, not like we often, not like interrupted with chatting or drinking tea or getting distracted. Often when we do group practice, then it ends up a bit like that. That wouldn't qualify as like proper, the proper performance of a ritual, right? It means doing it really one-pointedly and authentically. If we do it like that, then yeah, just like I said, all of the 11 principles are complete, samaya also perfectly kept. Also, some people say that, I like practicing, but I really prefer just doing meditation in comparison to, as opposed to ritual practice. I guess by meditation they mean like silent meditation. But actually, once you come to understand what Khenpo Daze Rinpoche pointed out and what I just explained, how all 11 principles of mantra are present in any given ritual, any given sadhana, then you see actually ritual practice is meditation, and it is the best kind of meditation, the most profound, meaningful kind of meditation. So yeah, that was the 11 principles of mantra and how they're contained in ritual practice, ritual liturgies. In terms of which liturgy, because here I've referenced specifically the Guhyagarbha Tantra, right? And so in terms of liturgies, there are many different liturgies, both in the oral tradition, the Kama oral tradition, which many liturgies connected to the Guhyagarbha Tantra in the Kama tradition. Likewise, in the Terama or treasure tradition, for instance, in the different cycles like Longchen Nyingtik and so on, you find many sadhanas that would be sadhanas for the magical matrix of the Guhyagarbha. It's important, all of you here are practitioners, right? You're engaged in practice and want to be properly engaged in practice. And as practitioners, it's important that we understand the vital points, but also that we know how to condense them and apply them, right? So one way to condense and apply these points is to engage in ritual practice in this way. That's so much.
Excellent. Yeah.
So now I'm going to go through the liturgy. I'm going to start looking at the actual liturgy, and I'm going to point out and explain how each of these 11 principles of mantra are present in this specific liturgy.
옆에 뭐 상기요. 이거를 상기게 이거 봐야 되는 시험에. 네, 단도 지선다 미쳐가 되어 있는 것으로 따라야한다 봐. 근데 바빠라는 데 아마도 아스트레일리아나 시사들 내게 내가 그러다 보니 말이 네, 답답해. 답답한 언니 그러고 내가 길라. 계기가 받는 네, 생각이 답답한 그런 게 받으라. 이거 시와 지금 따와네. 근데 내일 내가 다 봐야 할 거고 되는 거 하티나 나와다 기록다 신다 샤리다 본다 숨을 신고 있다. 신스나사서 야리가 스미 나와 칸바스. 근데 또 차스를 돌아가는 게 하고. 그때 이제 하나 그게 신스를 돌아가네. 샤스모 그렇게 비신었다고. 내 샤리에 가서 또 샤리에 가. 네, 이나 지금 나와 또 나와 또 있으면 이제 내들어서 많이 지기들하니 engenses어요. 근데 engens에 대한 거 같아. chopa 대한 거는 막바탕 와다 공부하고 무슨 탐지야. 빨리 나와서 말은 뭐는 무죄시잖아. 탐지는 사냐로 또 탐지는 chopa야. 이게 뭔가 나오는 거 chopa스인데. 아이는 나가 이게 진짜 세기요. 대비다 생이 두두두지 말이야. 항상 이 들어서 나와 나와 된다. 나와 밥 먹어야 tawa layan tata nalo mushi kompa layan kota nung tata na toto si plachi ke kone tena tulisin chipo ke kone tawa karasina ya tene yene tapara jane pai kuta ne ko juji ta pai ke rakhi ba rangi nampo de pai ba ha ko tawa chi ti ngawa ne ni da kompa chi ini chi pai ki cha ja da ngalan ko ta ngalan to chi sa ta na ta cha ya ha ko ni mo de chi ke lai cha ja Chopa, Lama, Dawa, Chopa, Chopa. Chopa that was a Chopa, Chopa, you when it used to be Chopa, Chopa, public number of movie, Tinisum, you eating the couldn't get things that now. You are shut up and Yakelo, or you don't want to push it now and say your mind. Fifteen doing a lot of Chopa Lion, when he just Chopa Lion announces Michelle, the Monchi, the Chopa. Tam Chopa says, go back in books, that are so to become good. Eating for Yala Sham for my say, knitting and in a Yeshe, the King Corus. I think in good as you don't you think of the run none of that? Chivata Cho, the Hatan Jetan, Tina Koto, the Contan, the Luna, the Assembly, in the Tinti Koros. I remember the poems, the thing we don't have once in the year, once again. One chick, the Lami, one computer, here, the Hillary and D ones, the countess, and Gu ones. Langu ones again, around with Lama getting that to the only figure that then Chopa down in our own city, the one of the Vegas, one thing, and the Langu was running in our own city on the name. Team to come out one and yet the team. As I was a double to run into like and to write out, hello to Tala, go on the one with the run one. Let them do the one so that you want in it, that they are in a charge of one year, they go on the Samsung. Game is that the Tamsila Pemigam with the Tamsil Namson Mangu, you heard it, Donna Payam Dembagi, Tawatila, Ni, Tilima, in Chopon, issue of the time, but Yemi, Tendan, then Tamsil can take you goods. Then don't do it to pass. To pass the high, Satan, Satan, Salin, now the only not to do human details. Shalan and Shan, the name in the was a true. So, to what was a true. Was a cow, a long trip, loss of the other children, Martin, Donald, Marian was a mother to the Aston Gentleman, Big Top. I feel like now saying you was young by me to what to choose. It will be one to buy this. Oh, yeah, and to what as well. It is to the Chopa. It being Tapani was about Chopa, Chichu, not to Sanchez and Chopa Maway. It are my one, the Dorje was the Chopa. Very just used to be very Chopa. But the end of the name, some sunset, that maybe Chopa said that you don't have Donna, she
So, okay, now let's go through these 11 principles of mantra again, but specifically in relation to this practice of Vajrasattva. So the first of the 11 principles is the view, right? The view of the intrinsic nature. So that this refers essentially, primarily, to understanding or having conviction in the inseparability of the truths of great purity and equality. The relative truth of great purity and the ultimate truth of great equality. So having an understanding and conviction in the truth of inseparable purity and equality, you understand that, okay, now you have the conviction that everything I see, everything I experience right now is in reality the 5 female and male Buddhas. Everything without exception is right here and now the 5 male and female Buddhas. Everything in reality is the display, the play of boundless purity. In reality, things are not impure, not ordinary impure. For instance, this appearance of Australia, this is not real. In reality, this is a pure realm, a manifestation of inseparable purity and equality. having this knowledge, knowing this, having confidence in this, is the view, the first principle. So, having this view, we should have this view, conjure this view when engaging in this practice. And if we do, we have the first of the 11 principles present, the view. Secondly, we have the principle of unwavering samadhi, which in terms of this, the practice of this sadhana, refers to the visualization, of the deity and the deity's palace, and also their pure realm. So the deity, meaning Vajrasattva and his consort, his retinue, the palace that he abides in, the immeasurable celestial palace that we visualize him in, as well as his pure realm, which is the realm of great delight. So visualizing all of these things is how we practice or implement the second principle of samadhi. The third principle is that of conduct, the conduct to be kept. We apply this principle when we understand that all of the movements we make during our practice, movements of our legs, of our arms, when we implement this, when we see or perceive all of our movements as the movement of the deity. So when we see or perceive all of our movements of our hands, legs, and so on during practice as that of the deity, and never separate from that perception. That's in brief how we implement the first three principles of view, meditation, and conduct in this practice of Vajrasattva. As always, there's a lot more detail, a lot more we could say, and a lot more detail taught in the Guhyagarbha Tantra and its related texts. Just to say a few more things about conduct. Just to say a few more things about the view. Sorry. As I said, essentially the view here refers to having conviction or knowledge of the inseparability of great purity and equality. More specifically, though, that it refers to, with knowledge of the inseparability of purity and equality, having the confidence that I am Vajrasattva, I am the deity Vajrasattva. And not being separate from that. With the confidence that I am Vajrasattva, then actually visualizing oneself as Vajrasattva, visualizing the palace and so on visually, that is the implementation of the second point of samadhi or meditation. And then as we proceed through the sadhana, at certain points in the sadhana we make mudras, right? Certain gestures with our hands. Those and other gestures that we make pertain to the third point of conduct, the conduct to be kept. So that was a little more specifically about how those first three principles are practiced in this sadhana. Fourth is the principle of mandala. This refers externally to having the various offerings and tormas arranged on the shrine, just like we have here and like we had arranged more elaborately yesterday for the empowerment. Having these physical offerings arranged on the shrine is the external mandala. The real or essential mandala is actually to be visualized, to be seen and visualized in our body. In fact, the entire mandala is present within our body. All of the deities, all of the deities without exception are present in our body. So visualizing that is the real mandala, this fourth point. Then we have the fifth point of empowerment. As I've said, there's many different ways to divide up and talk about empowerment. We can talk about simply speaking, a twofold division, two types of empowerment. The first being causal empowerment and the second being path empowerment. So the causal empowerment is the empowerment that is given to you by a teacher, like what I did last night. I bestowed on you empowerment, right? That's causal empowerment, the first type. Then we have path empowerment. So this refers to what the practitioner continues to bestow empowerment upon themselves through practice. We do this. We see this process of self-initiation through visualizing the four empowerments in most sadhanas, right? Including in Ngondro, in Guru Yoga, you visualize that from the Guru's forehead, white light streams out, dissolves into you, bestowing the vase empowerment, and so on. All of that is describing the practice of path empowerment. So in this case then, we visualize at a given point in the practice, we visualize that from Vajrasattva's forehead, white light streams out and dissolves into the forehead of us, purifying the obscurations of our body, bestowing the vase empowerment, which ripens as a certain aspect of enlightenment, and so on. We visualize also other different colored lights coming out from the throat and the heart, and so on, bestowing the other empowerments. The sixth point, the samayas that should not be transgressed. The main central samaya is to remain within the view of inseparable purity and equality, without being distracted, without wavering from that. So remaining in this view means from the very beginning of the practice all the way to the end. To remain in that view of inseparable purity and equality is to uphold our samayas. That's the sixth point. The seventh is engaging in practice, or rather practice that which is to be engaged in. So that refers essentially to the visualization of the deity with all of the specific attributes. So visualizing Vajrasattva with one face, with his two arms, and so on, and all the other attributes described in the sadhana. Visualizing light rays radiating out from his heart center, gathering back, and so on. So these different aspects of visualization are what the seventh point of practice refers to. And central to this is the visualization of light rays radiating out and gathering back. We visualize different colored lights, white, red, yellow, and so on, radiating out. First of all, they project out to all of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, present them with offerings, pleasing offerings. Then they gather back and dissolve into us. They radiate out once more, striking all sentient beings of the six types, purifying their misdeeds and obscurations. And there are other stages of visualization where we visualize again the light rays radiating out and gathering back. These are described in what are called the 4 stages of approach and accomplishment, about which we could say a great deal more. Now we come to the 8th point, making pleasing offerings. We can talk about outer, inner, and secret offerings. We can categorize offerings in that way. The scriptures also describe the offering of union, the offering of liberation, the unsurpassable or inconceivable offering. During the practice, we engage in all of these different types of offerings. As we go through the ritual, we engage in these different types of offerings. We also, on the shrine, for instance, we present what are called the 7 general offerings of drinking water, rinsing water for the feet, flowers, incense, lamp, and so on. These are also offerings. Likewise, if we make any tormas and present those, if we make a tsok offering or feast offering, if we light candles or lamps, these all pertain to this 8th principle of making pleasing offerings. Similarly, there are different types of offerings, right? And these different offerings are directed towards different sense faculties or different aspects of the deity. For instance, the lamp is an offering made specifically to the deity's eye. Incense is presented specifically to the nose faculty. Clothes and garments to the body. Food to the mouth, and so on. When the liturgy might describe presenting like a display of music and dance, a performance of music and dance, that is said to be an offering to the mind of the deity. So with all of these different types of offerings, we're presenting, we're presenting, we're pleasing the deity by presenting these different things to the different aspects of their being. Of course, placing offerings, physical offerings on the shrine is important, but those actually function merely as a support for our visualization of further types of offerings. The real or kind of most important types of offerings are those that we visualize, imagine, emanate out, and the physical offerings we arrange on the shrine merely act as a support for that process. 9th point of activity. During the ritual practice, we invoke the 4 activities. The activities of pacifying, increasing, magnetizing, and subjugating. Why do we do this? We do this with certain ends in mind, certain goals in mind, essentially to accomplish the supreme and common siddhis, to accomplish enlightenment through the supreme siddhi, and then also to accomplish the common siddhis. With these 4 activities that we invoke, we might, for instance, try to cultivate good health, freedom from illness, freedom from famine and plague, and we would, on a higher level, invoke realization, request empowerment, and so on. So that's the 9th point of activity, invoking these various activities at different points in the liturgy. 10th point is mudra. Like I said earlier, there are many different types of mudra or seal. The main, most important, is the appearance of the deity. So to visualize oneself in the form of the deity, or to visualize the form of the deity in this context of Vajrasattva, and to maintain that visualization from the beginning of the practice all the way through to the end, is to implement this 10th principle of mudra. Then finally, 11th is the mantra to be recited. Essentially, this refers to the 100-syllable mantra of Vajrasattva, which we recite verbally. We recite it purely and properly with correct pronunciation, and that's how we implement this 11th principle. There are actually many different types of recitation taught in the tantras, but we won't go into those details now. Simply speaking, by reciting the 100-syllable mantra verbally during this practice, then we're implementing that 11th and final principle. So in this way, you can see generally how these 11 principles, which, as I've said, they condense the heart of the entire Guhyagarbha Tantra, of the magical matrix, how all these 11 principles are present in this sadhana practice, and how thereby we can implement those ourselves. Once you have this knowledge, that tantric practice involves this thing called the 11 principles, and then you have an understanding of how those 11 principles are present in any given ritual practice, including the specific one you're doing, then you can really consciously implement them in your own practice, and then your practice becomes much more beneficial, incredibly beneficial and effective. Without this knowledge of the 11 principles and how to implement them in your practice, then of course engaging in practice, going through the sadhana is still very beneficial, but nothing like as meritorious and efficacious as doing it with that knowledge. That's what I'm saying.
Yeshe kafe Chariot na de tangyen de ba yer mi ta ro tangyen ba yer mi so lo tangyen de ba yer mi ba ka so yer de Chopa tian chi la chi jong chi cha so de ne ba ma se chi tra no no so nyong wa so ji mo ne pa da na ma so de nyong wa tun de ta ne ba so de nyong wa sa ba nyong wa so de ba ko so ba ta de ta chi ya level de to de so ma chi la chi ya res.
The more confidence, the greater your confidence in the inseparability of the truths of purity and equality, then the greater the blessings and power of one's practice will be. So it's important to have a degree of confidence or certainty in the view of inseparable purity and equality, and to apply that, to have that confidence when engaging in the ritual practice. First of all, one has a kind of a conceptual confidence, right? Like a conceptual understanding and conviction. This imbues one's practice with a degree of power, a degree of blessings. And then as you continue to practice, that conceptual conviction should develop into an experiential conviction. So it should deepen and grow into something, a conviction that comes from your own experience, that, actually, you have some taste, some direct taste of the inseparability of purity and equality, what that actually means. With that, your practice will become even more powerful and more blessed. And then, as your experience grows into realization, upgrades into realization, then, of course, the blessings and power increase even more. Awesome. So, to sum up what we've covered so far, to begin with, I gave a kind of general overview of sadhana practice and said a few things about sadhana practice in general, generation stage practice in general. Then I went through the 11 principles of mantra in general. And then I went through them again in relation generally to this specific sadhana, right? Gave you an overview of how the 11 principles are present in this specific practice. So now I will say a few things about generation stage, the practice of generation stage. When teaching the practice of generation stage, the scriptures talk about certain sets of qualities or different sort of frameworks that are implemented. One such set is purifying, perfecting, and ripening. So often the scriptures explain how the practice of generation stage purifies, perfects, and ripens in different ways. Similarly, the texts talk about pitching the framework of the 3 samadhis with generation stage practice and developing the qualities, this trio of qualities of vivid clarity, stable pride, and pure recollection. In particular, the Nyingma tradition in particular talks about the 4 nails that bind the life force. These are said to be kind of the vital points of generation stage practice. So this is what I'm going to talk about next. Awesome.
Shili tell them, bad in good today. You can't go send you go in there. Oh, yeah, you but you could pack it for you, not that you did not. Oh, yeah, no, that you are also true to the end. Yeah, that's much more. I wasn't close to you, how good you are. No, that you are Tanyam, the Bayan to get out in Yavaina. Yeah, the Yan, she got somewhere. The power of the deed in Joshing and Guru Kumari, who want nothing. So, that's so them says she get out of two to 500, but they saw them to see them. I think they make it up, they might just use it. Keeping of the red, till now, dead on mountain. That's the time they did beauty over and Jeremy. The problem session, yes. But the old time Yeshe. That the sort of says the old share, Chopa down there, the sort of says share. In the console, those that she's in the judiciation, but things is like it. Those is some of that that you got in the double which is just the Latin, but in the department says on Vajrasattva, Vajrasattva, any talking in we in a Dawa, so the chilling is that the awesome choice. Yeah, the church Java to the Javan and the Chopa to the program, Sinja, Sinjing, I get the Madam Tilly. Oh, not the Dawa, the Salah, was a true. It was a chilling. That Bongo will give you such an answer. Time they will be here without now, with the half of it. And begin to let you all know you not in a city. I play the Yen Sanji, but people see it done in Chopa. But this he going to die in a government. Come with you know about the political birth of the Lama also true to service. This young people go on higher duty around not doing it and the Tamil and the Tamil clinic that the important of the chapel. It did those and it did I should see the Lavati for the meeting but the body. No, we can meet together. I guess some of the meat Tom of the what the sleep you again was getting me some. I'm not get the other in a only no, you do dancing to get and give him Boba Lion and Nila Sawa. You but me like Subala, get him to put the voice from didn't I see it wasn't for
So these four nails that bind the life force. The word that's translated into English as life force, it also has the sense of root, the meaning of like being the root or the heart of something. But yeah, in English typically we translate it as life force. It also has that connotation, meaning like if someone is missing this, they're dead, you know. So these four principles that I will explain in a moment are described as the four nails that bind the life force. This is to say they are really like the heart, main points, as Rinpoche said in English, main points of the practice of deity and mantra. If someone is lacking, if a body is lacking a life force, then it's just a corpse, right? It's not able to function. It's not a live thing. So this is all to say that we need to have all of these 4 principles, called the 4 nails that bind the life force, when practicing deity and mantra. Why 4 nails? Well, imagine we have like a piece of wood. If you take a piece of wood but you nail it down into the ground just like on one corner or one side, it's not going to be stable, right? It's like going to kind of rise up off the ground on one side and be easily moved. Whereas if you nail the piece of wood down into the ground on all 4 corners, then it's going to be stable and unmovable, right? It's going to be fixed in place. So, yeah, we need to have these 4 nails. What are the 4 nails? Just to mention, first I'll just mention them by name. The first is the generated visualization. This refers to the visualization of the deity. Second is the recited mantra. Third is the activity of radiating out and gathering back. This refers to the visualizing light rays radiating out, gathering back, and performing activities. And fourth is the nail of unchanging realization, which refers to an understanding of reality, the boundless purity of all things. So our practice needs to be infused or imbued with all 4 of these principles. We need, when engaging in this specific practice of Vajrasattva, then we need to have a clear visualization of Vajrasattva, the deity, together with his retinue and palace and so on, right? This is what the first nail is referring to. Secondly, we need to engage in the mantra recitation, reciting the 100-syllable mantra of Vajrasattva, which comes at a certain point in the practice. When reciting this mantra, we need to recite the mantra verbally, but we also need to accompany that with certain visualization. So visualizing that in Vajrasattva's heart center is a white Vajra, and in the central hub of that Vajra is his seed syllable Hung, encircled by the mantra garland of the 100 syllables. And we need to visualize all of that extremely clearly and correctly. Thirdly, when reciting the mantra, we need to visualize the different stages of light rays emanating out and gathering back. We need to visualize, first of all, light rays emanating out into all 10 directions and making pleasing offerings to the enlightened body, speech and mind of all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, all deities. Then we need to visualize these light rays being gathered back into Vajrasattva's heart, radiating together with bringing in all of the blessings and accomplishments. Then the light rays radiating out again, striking all sentient beings without exception, purifying their karma, obscurations and obstacles, establishing them in the state of Vajrasattva, and so on. And then we continue this process of light rays emanating out and gathering back to accomplish the 4 activities of pacifying, increasing, and so on. And fourthly, and so we do this in this specific sadhana. That's the 3rd nail. And then fourthly, we have the nail of unchanging realization, which refers essentially to a realization of boundless purity, meaning the inseparability of the truths of great purity and great equality, the conviction and realization that all phenomena comprised of the aggregates, illustrated by the 5 aggregates and the 5 elements, are the male and female Buddhas. That is their true nature. And this 4th nail of unchanging realization, conviction in the boundless purity of all things, this needs to be present from the very beginning to the very end of the practice. Other aspects of some of the other nails, like the nail of mantra recitation and emanating out and gathering back of light rays, are performed at a certain point in the practice, right? But this 4th nail of unchanging realization, this should be maintained from the very beginning to the very end without wavering. This is a very brief kind of summary of these 4 nails. They're taught extensively in many of the tantric scriptures. For instance, in Purba Bumnak di Sugi Sungin. which is a commentary on Prabha Bumnak by Guru Rinpoche. That's a very extensive commentary by Guru Rinpoche that teaches the 4 nails in great detail. They're also taught by explained in a text by Pato Rinpoche. The text is entitled The 4 Nails That Bind the Life Force, and it is available in English. That text is of medium length. It's about 40 pages or so, and it contains a very comprehensive explanation that is rooted in the Tantras. To sum up, to reiterate, if we have all of these 4, the principles of these 4 nails, then, and we apply them in our Vajrasattva practice, then our Vajrasattva practice will be authentic and very effective. To reiterate, this means, simply speaking, visualizing the deity Vajrasattva, reciting his mantra, visualizing light rays radiating out and gathering back, and then at the end of the sadhana, after the mantra recitation we dissolve the visualization, right? The visualization is dissolved into the intrinsic nature. The intrinsic nature being the inseparability of purity and equality. So there we have the 4th nail. But as I've said, this 4th nail actually needs to infuse all aspects of the practice. This is how we should practice for our practice to be authentic and genuine. For our Vajrasattva practice to be authentic and genuine. And we shouldn't, that said, it's not enough just to engage in this Vajrasattva practice for say a month or several weeks and to accumulate say 100,000 of the mantra, recitations of the mantra. That is not enough to actually accomplish this practice, accomplish the generation stage of this practice. To do that, we need to apply ourselves to the practice from now until the rest of our life, for our whole life. That is what accomplishment takes. Applying oneself to practice for the duration, the whole stretch of one's life. To keep on practicing with these various qualities of visualization, mantra recitation, and so on, until the mandala of Vajrasattva actually manifests, actually dawns in our own experience and becomes our reality. It's not enough for this practice just to remain like a mental, as something that we imagine, something that we visualize mentally. We should pursue our practice until we actually experience it as reality. The generation stage texts explain that as your practice deepens and grows, your visualization will, at first it's just a visualization, like a mental visualization that is seen kind of in the mind's eye. But then it develops into something that you see actually with your physical eye. It actually becomes a visible object. The deities and mandala become a visible object, perceptible to your actual eye. And then if you continue to practice, then the deity will become so manifest that you can actually touch the deity, interact with the deity, speak to them in the same way that we speak to each other, the way that we see each other, interact with each other. And so on. So that is the degree, the level to which we need to commit ourselves to practice and apply ourselves with these 4 nails that bind the life force. That's what
well, I'm back lifting in the sub-lifting in the
So we will pause here for our break and resume a little later on. When we come back, we will actually go through the sadhana page by page, and I will point out again each of these principles, the 11 principles and 4 nails and so on, and say, okay, you see, so this is applied here and this is applied there. What I've given you in this this session is kind of equivalent to a map. You know, I've explained kind of the content and all these these crucial points, the 11 principles of mantra, the 4 nails that bind the life force, which really make up the deity practice. And when we come back, then we will, like I said, just go through the sadhana page by page, and you'll get an even clearer idea of, okay, this is exactly how these parts fit into this specific practice. That's it. Now let's dedicate the merit.